Okay, welcome back for part 4 of the high score. So we're starting to get there. I think there'll be one or two more videos after this one though. But it's it's a system we're working step by step towards. So let's go back to Unity. And in this one what we're going to do is actually start saving and loading the high scores to and from a binary file. So it's actually in something better than player preps. This was kind of my idea for making this series, is I wanted to learn how to use these binary writers, just because all of my games I always use player preps up to this point. So this one's been taking a lot of work and just kind of planning out how to do this. So I think I understand it enough that I can actually show it here. I tried just playing around with a few prototypes, making it work. So let's go here and we're going to make a script. And I'm just going to call this, oh, you know what, I'm going to go save load manager. So let's open this one up. Okay, so we're going to start actually adding stuff in here. The one thing we need to do though is on our main menu manager, where we created this high score entry class, we just need to add this outside of the class and then save it. So this way it's at an actual public class, and inside here we could do something like say, sorry, what's the name of that? High score entry. We could do in here, we can actually see high score entry now. Whereas if we have it, this one inside this class, we can't. So this is kind of like the same idea as creating a separate script inside Unity, except we can make it in here and we don't have to inherit from mono behavior or anything. So that's set. Let's go in here. You know what, while we're here, one thing we have to do with this so we can actually save it later is we need to include using system. And then up above this class we need to use serializable. So this will actually allow it to be able to take all that data and write it to a file. Without that in there, you can't do it. So let's go to our save manager. We don't want mono behavior here, so we're going to get rid of that. And without that, you can't have starter updates. So we're going to get rid of those. And we need to add two namespaces here. So we need system.io. That'll let it write to the file and everything. And then we also need, this is a long one I have to look up, but luckily I was following, Brackeys has a great tutorial on this, so I'll try to remember to add a link to it below. But yeah, if you need to learn how to use the binary writer, check out Brackeys' video on making a save system, and it's perfect. He explains everything way better than I ever will be able to here. So we need this. And then serialization.formatters.binary, and this will give us the binary writer. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to make it so that we can take all the data from this high score entry class. Basically we're going to take all of this and we're going to actually store that in a binary file, so that way it's very hard for somebody to go in and modify it. You can't make any changes. It's not completely open like player prefs, and you can save as much stuff to it as you want. So let's go in here. So we need to make this a static class. That way there can only ever be one instance of it, or sorry, no instance of it, but there's only one, and we can call it from anywhere. We don't have to actually have it in the game scene, which you actually can't without inheriting from mono behavior there. Okay, so we're going to make two methods in here. We're going to make one for saving and one for loading. Both of them have to be public and static. So let's make a public static void. And I'm going to do save scores. And then this one, we're going to pass in a list of high score entries. And let's just call this high score list. Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, and then we're also going to make a public static list. This one's going to return a list of high score entry. and we're going to call this load scores. So coding wise in these is going to be quite similar, and we probably could break the stuff out into a method to save duplicating code, but for now we're going to do it separate. So I'm just going to put comments as I go. That's kind of for me to keep track of what everything's doing when I have to come back to it and make changes and stuff in the future. So the first thing, we're going to create the binary formatter. So it's binary formatter type, and then I'm just going to call it my formatter, and that's new binary formatter. Okay, so we have that, and then we have to create a local path, and this is going to be where it saves the data. Okay, and this is a string, call it path, and there's actually this built right in, so we can do application.persistent data path. So my understanding of this is Unity will kind of pick a location where to save it on the local file system. This way you don't have to put an exact path in that, you know, it's different on Mac OS or Windows or, you know, mobile, wherever you are. The file system's different. This will actually take care of that for us. And then we can append to it, we'll add slash, say, I'm just going to do data.dat, but this can be any name that you want. That's just the file that it's going to add. Okay, so we have that. So now we have to create a file stream, and this is what's going to actually create and open a file. Okay, so for this one, it's file stream. We can just call it whatever we want. So in this case, stream, new file stream. Okay, and we've got to give it a path, which is the path we made above. And then you have to use file mode, and we're going to do create. So I looked this one up a bit. Create will actually create a new file, but if there is an existing file there already, it'll overwrite that file and create a new one. So it does look like we want in this case. So every time we save, we're going to overwrite what's in there and just put new. We don't want to append or anything, but you do have a lot of other options here. So I believe create new, from what I was reading on the Microsoft site, is it'll create a new file, but if one exists, it will throw an exception or an error for that. So we don't want that one. And you can append where you can add to it, but in this case, we just want create. Okay, so we have that, and then this part's where we're going to actually write data to the file. So for this one, we want to use myFormatter.serialize, which is going to actually put the data into the file. We want to use the stream, and then we're going to put in the high score list. And that's the high score list that we took in. So basically, we're going to dump the whole thing in there, and then we got to close the file. And for this, it's just stream.close. Okay, so this should take care of all the saving. And then for the loading, it's actually going to be very similar. So what we got to do here is we got to create a path. So we can actually copy this. Okay, and then we got to do check if the file exists. So this is just going to be an if statement, if file.exists, and then we put in the path, which is the full path to the file itself. Okay, so that's going to be if the file exists. This is going to be if it does not. So in here, I'm just going to put a debug log or log error high score save file not found. So that'll just be to show us that that happened, but if we set everything up correctly, that should never happen. Okay, so in here we have to create a binary formatter again, so we'll just copy this code. Okay, and then we got to create a file stream again, so we can copy this code. But what we want to do here is, instead of create, we're going to do open. So this will actually open the existing file, and then we can read everything from the file. Okay, and then this part's going to be, we're going to read from the file and save in a list of high score entry. Okay, so let's do list high score entry, and we'll call it, we'll go with my scores. Then we just want to use my formatter.deserialize, and that's going to actually read it in from the stream that we created above. And we have to cast this as the right type. So in this case, it took me a bit of playing around. I thought I would just cast it as high score entry, but that was given an error. So we actually have to do list high score entry. So it can't just be the one, it has to be the full list. Oh, we don't need brackets there. Okay, so we have that, and then we should just have to close the stream. So we'll do stream.close. Okay, and then return the high score list. So we'll do return my scores. Okay, so that should actually be that system. We have everything set up here. So now in the main menu manager, we're just going to have to do some changes in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a public void. Let's call this save scores. We don't have to pass anything into it. All we're going to have to do is call it. But then what we will do is, since the save load manager is a static class, we don't have to load it or anything. We can just do save load manager dot, and then in the list we see save scores here, so we can call that, and we just got to pass in our high score list, which is this one. So we pass that in, and that's gonna call the save load manager and actually save our current high scores. We don't need to make a load scores one because we already have the display high scores. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to take this sort routine that we made here. I'm actually going to put it in save as the first part. So this way, every time we call save scores, it's going to sort them first so they're in the proper order. Then when we load them, we just display them as is. So here, all we got to do is, we're going to take high score entry list equals save load manager dot load scores, and then this is just going to load them from the file and then pass them into high score entry list, which we will use here to actually display them. So this really should be everything now. What we can do, let's try to test this. You know what, if we go back to Unity, let it compile here and then run it. Oh, we're getting an error here. Okay, so that's in the else. We didn't do a return, so we can just return null if it does not find a file. Let's clear that. That should be good. Okay, so that's good. You know what? Same thing I always do. We didn't actually call the code. So let's do save scores. We will call that right in start after it. This is just for testing. This isn't where we're going to call it later. Okay, let's run this. Click high scores. Okay, so we see the high scores in here. It should have called save high scores when we started. So what we can do now is, you know what, let's comment out all of this for now. So there's nothing in our code that's actually loading high scores right now. So we'll know if everything works if we run the game, if we go to display high scores and it actually shows scores, which it does. So these are actually being loaded from the binary file now. So this is working. So this should be good for this video. What we'll have to do now is we don't need this stuff here anymore, but we have to work in a system that when we're playing the game, if you beat the high score, it's going to need to check. Basically, at the end game, like when you actually call end game, which I believe is in game controller here. Where are we? So end of round. You know, I don't think we really made an end game state yet, actually. I don't think we did. So yeah, we're gonna have to make that, and then when the end game is called, when you lose, then it's gonna check your score. We can just use the save load manager, pull in the high scores that are saved in the binary file, and if your score is higher than any of them, then we add it to the list and then save the list again. And we're going to make a little text field that you can type your initials as well, and it's going to save those. And then once we got that working, that's really the whole save manager, and then we're almost done the game.